There we go. It's working now. So, brother, Moomin, good to see you. How you doing? How you been? Kurt, good to see you. How you doing? Good evening. You're the first ones in today. Theo's good to see you. How you doing, brother? How you been? How's things? Happy Pisces, good to see you. How you doing? How's things? Good evening, Miles and family. Good to see you as well. How you doing, Ian? How you been, brother? Good evening, brother Miles. Funky brother, good to see you as well. How you doing? Hello, brother Miles. T, good to see you. How you doing? I hope everyone had a great weekend. My weekend was it was a busy weekend. I was again just helping my business partner essentially move into his new apartment. It was long, very, very long. Good evening, Miles. CMF Truth. Good to see you. How you doing? How you been? Good evening, CMF. Let's go funky. Hi, Miles. CMF. Carlos. Good to see you. How you doing? Good evening, Miles and CMF. Ring forever. Good to see you. How you doing? Okay. Let's do intro disclaimer. What we're going to go through on tonight's live, and by that time, everyone should be tuned in for the first part of the live show. Welcome to. Welcome to the CMF. If you're watching this for the first time ever, the CMF actually stands for Crypto Miles Family. My name is Miles. You can tune to this live Monday, Friday, 10 p.m., long time onwards. For the most recent news regarding cryptocurrency, CBDCs, AI, politics, and regulations. All the information you should know about regarding the world completely transforming into a digital space. The disclaimer of this live show, as always, is not financial advice, not political advice, and whatever I say is only for entertainment purposes. And we also do Q&As in this live as well, which means if you do have any questions, put it down to the comment section. More than happy to help you out. This is episode 416 of the CMF live show we're on right now, which is incredible. Also, thank you so much to everybody who has straight away liked and retweeted this live if you're watching this on X. And thank you so much to everyone who's also essentially liked the live if you're watching this on YouTube. CMF members, if you haven't liked or retweeted, smash the like buttons and smash the retweet buttons as well. Thanks so much to everyone that's put comments outside the live. Also, I can see JP just put fire emojis inside the comment section outside the live on X. Thank you so much for that. Now, on tonight's live, there's a mixture of news to go through. There's a lot of things happening inside the crypto sector that's essentially we're going to be covering. There's a lot of things happening in terms of Coinbase in India. There's the UK in terms of crypto regulations and some essentially other nations that we're going to talk about on tonight's live. We're also going to talk about essentially JP Morgan. We're going to go through essentially news regarding the White House and the crypto space, regarding also some footsteps being taken in terms of China and the US's relationship being built back up, which is brilliant to hear because that's good news for tech stocks. And when it's good news for tech stocks, it's good news for Bitcoin. When it's good news for Bitcoin, it's good news for the rest of the crypto space. And it's only because we don't have the regulations we need, which is the Clarity Act. Apparently, it's going to be around 17th or 18th. I hope that does happen. Now, before we go through the first news on tonight's live, which is regarding the White House and the crypto space, let's go inside the comment section first. Let's see what's happening there. And then go straight into the first news. So we were here. Hello, Miles of CMF. Scott, good to see you. How you doing? Good evening, all. JP, good to see you, brother. How you doing? Hello, Miles of family. Comatose, good to see you as well. How you doing? Miles, I missed the whole of last week as I was very busy with the family. I did catch up later. Let's go funky for that. Thank you so much. And hope everything's doing good. Any information on BTC government wallets and doubling crypto? Nothing so far, I would have to say. Just the cryptos they've been seizing so far is what they're keeping inside of their portfolios. Good evening, Miles. How are you doing? I'm doing great, Callie. Good to see you. How you doing? Share the live. Let's go, Scott. Absolutely facts. Not that anyone missed me or mentioned me at all. I thought we all family. I missed you. Thank you, brother. I missed you too, brother. Let's go, Scott. Now, the White House is what we talk about first on tonight's live. The White House official essentially addresses future economic announcements. Kevin Hassett, the director of the White House National essentially Economic Council, hinted at a recent interview about the potential positive economic developments under President Trump, emphasizing essentially strong GDP growth and prospects of low inflation going forward. And apparently there's a rumor going around, and the rumor is coming from Bloomberg today, that we should be expecting some sort of a rate cut going into 2026 to lower the inflation. Now, Hassett's essentially optimistic outlook could influence risk assets, including cryptocurrency markets, although no confirmed event essentially ties his comments to specific economic announcements or some sort of direct crypto announcements, but it is in general about the economic space right now inside the United States. Kevin Hassett also discussed growth prospects for the US, including potential 4% GDP growth rates, emphasizing essential productivity gains through AI. No verification confirms former President Trump's announcing a large volume essentially of economic positiveness, as essentially suggested. Market implications hinge on general positive economic sentiments going forward. Hassan's statements also essentially suggest growth with low inflation impacting equities and possibly the crypto space. This could encourage institutional essentially investments inside the crypto space regarding the ETFs, depending on the broader financial conditions. We're going to have growth. We've had two 4% quarters before the essentially Schumer shutdown. We're going to go back to that, said Kevin Hassett. Now, the Federal Reserve policies during Trump's tenure have historically impacted crypto markets, suggesting macroeconomic changes and could essentially indirectly or even directly affect digital assets. Any essentially broad US economic optimism might bolster crypto investments going forward if it reflects easier liquidity essential options, while direct regulatory essentially or technological shifts are not indicated. Macro trends could create favorable conditions for digital assets. As I said, Bloomberg is now suggesting also we should be looking at some sort of a rate cut. They're also suggesting, in other words, that Jerome Powell might play ball. In other words, he might be friendly towards the market space, especially towards the crypto space. Going into 2026, we might be seeing a rate cut before his essentially, his time comes to an end. Now, moving on essentially from the White House's, positive interest towards the market space, GDP growth happening inside the US. It's all positive, but yet not reflected on the crypto market space in terms of price action. To Argentina. There's a lot of things happening going into 2026. And the main thing is a lot of countries are about to be opening their doors towards the crypto space in terms of they've set their regulations up. Now they're ready to open their doors towards the crypto market space. And what that essentially implies is liquidity. And also regulations implies utility. So the first country we're going to go from tonight's live is Argentina. Argentina prepares a major shift, allowing banks to offer crypto services by 2026. Argentina is preparing one of its most significant financial essential reforms in years, as the central bank works on new rules that would allow traditional essentially banks to offer cryptocurrency trading and custody services. The framework is expected to take effect around April 2026 and would reverse the country's long-standing restrictions on institutional participation in digital assets. The shift essentially reflects President Javier Millei's pro-market philosophy and acknowledges how deeply crypto has become embedded into the daily financial lives of Argentinians. The central bank's plan would overturn a ban imposed back in May 2022 when the Banco Central de República Argentina Bank prohibited banks from facilitating any sort of crypto activity. The new approach aims to bring Argentina's massive informal crypto economy under regulated supervision, giving banks the ability to provide secure and compliant digital asset services. The proposal also currently limits banks to essentially a narrow group of blue chip assets, including Bitcoin, Ethereum, USDC, USDT, and XRP. These are the assets that essentially they're starting off with in Argentina. In 2026, April 2026, Argentinian banks are going to open their doors up to the public in terms of crypto trading, essentially crypto custody. And the assets they're going to be essentially, making available to the public are Bitcoin, Ethereum, and XRP. And in terms of stable coins, USDT and USDC. To maintain essentially stability during the initial rollout, financial institutions would be required to operate their essentially crypto divisions through legally separated units that meet stricter capital, security, and liquidity requirements. These operations would also fall under the oversight of national security essentially commissions, which already supervises other virtual asset providers. The framework is designed to ensure KYC and AML standards remain exceptionally strict as the sector shifts from informal essentially platforms into more formal banking systems. Argentina's rapid, essentially, embrace of digital assets has essentially been shaped by its severe economic conditions. The persistent hyperinflation, which escalated to 1,427% in 2023, pushed millions of citizens to essentially search for other tools outside, essentially, of the Argentinian money, which essentially people started running towards stablecoins and then essentially cryptocurrencies. The upcoming reforms aim to provide safer options for users who currently essentially depend on peer-to-peer markets and unregulated exchanges. By integrating crypto into established banking platforms, regulators hope to improve consumer protection and strengthen the government's ability to track and taxable essential activities. The move is also expected to accelerate mainstream adoption, especially through major banks such as BBVA, who is, by the way, Ripple's partner, Banco Macro, Grupo essentially Financier, and Grupo Sevilla. If fully approved, the framework would mark a major evolution in how Argentinians integrate, essentially, and how Argentina integrates into digital assets into a broader financial system. The decision also signals a regulated but open environment where crypto operates alongside traditional banking services. With preparation already on the way, the coming months will determine how quickly Argentina can move from planning to execution and how profoundly these changes reshape the financial landscape. 2026 is all about countries pretty much opening their doors. Russia is going to be opening their doors to cryptocurrencies. The UK is going to be having the regulations it needs to open its door to essentially cryptocurrencies. India apparently is on the verge of essentially opening its doors back up again. Chinese businesses and banks want access back into the crypto space as well. There's a lot of things happening, and 2026 seems to be the marker of institutional money and countries opening their doors and regulations for the crypto space. That's what's essentially going to be happening in 2026, which essentially equals to liquidity, utility, which is exactly what we want inside the crypto space. We want utility, first of all, inside the crypto space, and liquidity essentially just pours in as cherry on top. Now, moving on essentially from Argentina, which is brilliantly essentially bullish news, to Jamie Dimon. Before we talk about Jamie Dimon, let's go inside the comment section first. Let's see what's happening there. Then we go straight into the next news on tonight's live. And let's actually talk about JP Morgan next. Before we do that, let's go inside the comment section first. Let's see what's happening there. And then we go straight into the next news. We are here, I think. Morning, Miles at CMF. Shelly, good to see you all morning. How you doing, Shelly? How you been? Hi, Miles. Thank you for sharing the link. Unfortunately, I can only stay for 30 minutes as I have an appointment after. Feel free to message me or call me tomorrow evening after your show if you prefer. Carl, no problem. I'll give you a call. No problem. Hello to all my family members. I hope that you had a good day. Let's go, Scott. Hi, Miles at CMF. Stormy, good to see you as well. How you doing? The slow and methodological social movement of XRP causes me to think there is something special about to happen in 30 to 60 days. Not advice, just my essentially just thinking out loud. I agree with you, Scott. Yep. What up, Miles and CMF? Ray, good to see you as well. How you doing? How you been? XRP, XLM, XDC, HVAL, all brilliant projects. I won't let institutions squeeze me out. I'm hold. I will follow essentially those same institutions all the way to the bank. Let's go, Scott. Is the reverse carry trade actually affecting the market currently, or will it later? More manipulation is essentially what's affecting the market space, and futures essentially does affect the market space quite a bit. Good evening, Miles. Hope you had a great weekend. Hi to everyone inside of CMF. Adi, good to see you as well. How you doing? Hope you had a great weekend as well. Miles, do you think the Clarity Act will pass anytime soon? There is one senator, I think Republican, whose family is into BTC heavily and is slowing essentially things up. Do you know much about this and or her? Regarding the Republican that's slowing down the crypto space, no, I don't know much about that. But regarding the Republican who's pushing for the Clarity Act, I know about that one. He's the man that essentially had conversations with the Democrats during the government shutdown to get the clarity, essentially to see what their viewpoints are on the Clarity Act and the Genius Act that was essentially passed. And then he had to sit down essentially with Republicans, essentially we'll see what their views are of the Clarity Act. And then essentially had a sit down with the House regarding see what their viewpoints are regarding Clarity Act. And regarding the Clarity Act, 17th to 18th of this month is essentially on the books. So we have to see what happens between 17th to 18th. Any word on XDC or XLM? Not much yet. Share the live. Let's go, Scott. Hello, my friends. Let's go, Scott. And hello, let's go, Scott. Now, Jamie Dimon addresses JP Morgan's account closure practices. So, for the longest time, there's been essentially a lingering bad essentially scenario regarding banks, which is that banks are freezing people's bank accounts based on their political views in the past, or essentially, freezing presidents' bank accounts or previous presidents and so on. So everyone knows the story of the Trump family and how they essentially started loving crypto. It's because essentially the banks were shutting them out during essentially Trump becoming president. So regarding that, Jamie Dimon, the CEO of BlackRock, coming out and essentially saying that no, our bank does not move in political essentially ways. We do not, essentially block people from using their bank accounts based on their political point of views and so on, which I would have to disagree with in some sort of a way. But, Jamie Dimon, CEO of JP Morgan Chase, essentially defended the bank's account closures for compliance reasons in a Fox News interview, asserting that essentially a universal approach regardless of political affiliations. The statement highlights concerns about access to banking for crypto firms and politically exposed clients, underscoring essentially ongoing debates and around regulatory compliance and financial access. Jamie Dimon, the CEO of JP Morgan Chase, addressed these recent allegations regarding the bank's account closures and practices, emphasizing mostly regarding compliance. Now, the bank has closed accounts of people from all political and religious backgrounds, but never for those reasons, said Dimon, emphasizing that we debank Democrats, we debank Republicans. I mean, the bank reportedly terminated accounts from diverse political and religious backgrounds, and Jamie Dimon saying, when we close your bank account from JP Morgan, it's not because of your religion, it's not because of your political views, and so on. It's just that you didn't abide by essentially our terms and conditions, and we had to close your account. It's got nothing to do with you being Republican or you being a liberal or a Democrat or your religious views. We just didn't think you essentially understood the terms and conditions, and we closed your bank accounts, is what essentially is defending on Fox News in a live interview. Now, the bank reportedly terminated accounts from diverse political and religious backgrounds. Dimon highlighted that the closure are driven by regulatory and compliance factors, not political affiliations, underscoring both Republicans and Democrats face similar actions. The interview also has prompted concerns within the crypto and political communities about perceived banking access weaponization. Observers worry about the risk these actions pose to politically exposed and crypto-related entities. Dimon's also essentially remarks have sparked a debate over financial institutions' role in political and economic landscapes. In other words, the banks have too much of a monopoly going on inside of the world of politics. The discussions raises questions about banking access and risk within the crypto sector, reflecting broader industry pressures. Current regulatory frameworks compel banks to manage risks and through stringent essentially compliance measures. This includes de-risking in high-risk sectors like the crypto industry, reflecting Dimon's statements. Potential essentially outcomes based on historical practices suggest continued pressure on crypto firms. Regulatory reform essentially proposals from JP Morgan indicates efforts to balance compliance and industry-friendly essentially practices, resonating with trends found on blockchains, essentially FX. Now, the question does remain that essentially, does Jamie Dimon, essentially, not himself personally, but does JP Morgan Chase essentially, close people's bank accounts down based on their political views or their religious views or essentially their crypto, essentially footsteps? Some may argue that they do, and some may argue that they don't, but the ones that essentially argue that they don't are most likely going to be Jamie Dimon's essentially employees or himself. The ones that will go against him are obviously going to be the people that maybe had their accounts closed for purchasing cryptocurrencies, or it could even be crypto companies companies, because for the longest time by Gary Gensler, essentially they were shut out of the essentially banking space. And you could tell, right, regarding banks essentially, weaponizing the banking associations to go after the OCC. The banking associations didn't just stand up out of nowhere and thought to themselves, let's just write millions of letters and send it to the OCC to stop the crypto space from getting fed essentially skinny accounts or essentially a banking charter license regarding Ripple, Circle, Paxos, and so on. They were definitely weaponized by the banking sector. So the debate of, banks versus essentially crypto companies is still there. It's mostly because particular crypto companies are trying to take over essentially the banking sector, and we know who they are, Ripple, which is exactly why I would, put my eggs on Ripple, in other words. Now, putting that to one side, the SEC is what we're going to talk about next on tonight's live. Before we talk about the SEC, let's go inside the comment section first, and then we go straight into the next news on tonight's live. Please, if everybody can share the live on X and make a comment outside the live, much appreciated. Facts. CMF members, if you haven't smashed the like buttons or retweet buttons, smash the like buttons, smash the retweet buttons, and put a comment outside the live. Whatever you want. Fire emoji, hashtag XRP, go for it. Okay, Miles, let's do that. Thanks in advance. I will watch your live show after my return. CMF family, enjoy the live show for me. See you tomorrow, guys. Carl, see you tomorrow by the same time as usual. Now, Scott says, while Senator Cynthia Luminis is a key Republican proponent of crypto legislations, including using the House Clarity Act as a foundation, the senator reportedly slowing down a GOP crypto bill, likely the Responsible Financial Innovation Act in late 2025, was Senator Tim Scott, who wanted more input, with reports mentioning concerns about the pump the brakes, essentially, on the GOP crypto bill. As of September 2025, though specific family ties to Bitcoin weren't the focus in public reports, but okay, Scott, thank you for the update. Hello, Miles and CMF. My apologies for tuning in late. No problem. Good to see you, Lena. The price of ACH is lower than ever. When approximately you see it having a big pump ever, in your opinion? It's a possibility. I mean, ACH is essentially used as an on-ramp and off-ramp for quite a lot of crypto projects out there, quite a lot of crypto exchanges. So there is a possibility, but during time with regulations, we should see that move. Obviously, if you do want to jump out of ACH, your preferable asset should be XRP, because it's in the same category of finance, not financial advice at all. Share the live. Let's go, Scott. Now, SEC. SEC has just ended one of the longest running, essentially, crypto cases, which was against Ondo. SEC ends Ondo Finance's investigation, and it's without charges, which is great news for Ondo. The US SEC essentially has closed a confidential multi-year investigation into Ondo Finance, a real, essentially, world asset tokenization platform, resulting in no charges and sparking a positive response in Ondo's market performance. The market space today, in terms of price action, is really not showing the bullish news that's happening around the world, even for Ondo's case, to be fairly honest. The closure provides regulatory clarity and potentially boosting Ondo's institutional partnerships and US expansions, while positively impacting its tokenized products and enhancing confidence in compliant real-world asset tokenization. Ondo Finance reports that the US Securities Exchange Commission has closed its confidential investigation today, initiated during the Biden era, without any charges. Essentially, the decision could ease regulatory concerns, positively impacting Ondo's market activity and setting the stage for Ondo's operational expansion inside the US. Nathan, the founder and CEO of Ondo Finance, stated the SEC has formally closed a confidential Biden-era investigation into Ondo without any charges. The SEC concluded this multi-year investigation regarding the Ondo case, and Ondo Finance emphasized its full cooperation through the inquiry. Its products include tokenized US treasuries and equities, aiming to essentially bridge traditional finance and blockchain technology. The announcement sparked a positive reaction inside the cryptocurrency markets. Ondo's price significantly essentially increased. This essentially reflects the growing investor confidence in following the regulatory clarity from the SEC case regarding Ondo. The closure also supports Ondo's long-term goals and potentially increasing its institutional partnerships moving forward. And analysts predict that Ondo's cleared status could encourage a broader essentially adoption of tokenized assets inside the United States market space as regulatory bodies shift towards embracing tokenization technology more than ever before. Banks and institutions love the idea of tokenization. And then a significant move essentially for Ondo, the same day today that essentially SEC ended its case regarding Ondo Finance, is exactly the same day that in a significant move for the crypto regulatory landscape, Ondo Finance has officially also joined the Blockchain Association. This decision marks a pivotal moment where a major deal, essentially as real-world asset tokenization platform, steps directly into the arena of U.S. digital essentially asset policy formations. The timing is crucial and coming essentially on the heels of a favorable resolution with the SEC. This is quite big news. Two big news is for Ondo Finance. One, the SEC dropping its case against it. That started during Biden's era for no apparent reason. And two, Ondo just joined the Blockchain Association, which is brilliant news for Ondo, to be fairly honest. And if you are somebody that's holding Ondo and believes in what they're doing, this is amazing news for Ondo, especially now that we're getting closer and closer to a Clarity Act moving forward. Any cases regarding these crypto projects should be gone before clarity comes out. Mainly because it works out better for the project not having a case against it. Now, going on to essentially the next news on tonight's live, which is regarding Coinbase and India. Before we talk about Coinbase and India, let's go inside the comment section first. Again, let's see what's happening there, and then go straight into the next news. Miles, the live keeps freezing. I don't know if it's my internet or yours. The rain is quite heavy in London right now, so the internet's playing up. Can everybody see me and hear me? Thumbs up inside the comment section if you can see me and hear me. Is it freezing, lagging? Can you hear me and see me? Just out of curiosity. I just want to know if it's Funky Brother that's having the issue, or is it on my side where the issue lies? Can you hear me and see me? If you can hear me and see me, put a thumbs up inside the comment section. Just out of curiosity. Just to see. It just froze again. Can everybody hear me and see me? Yep, you can hear me, see you. Yep. Yep. Okay, Funky Brother, I think the issue is on your side, because on my side, I think we're good. Yep, everyone can see me. Let me switch over to X. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much, everyone, for putting your thumbs up inside the comment section. So with that, we know essentially everybody can hear me and see me. Let's go. Okay. Now, next news on tonight's live regarding Coinbase and India. Now, India essentially is a massive market space for the crypto space. And for the longest time, they've been quite strict on essentially crypto policies and regulations and essentially, opening their doors up to the crypto space. They're more very, pro CBDC, anti-cryptocurrency. However, Coinbase is going to be having multiple sit downs with India, and apparently they're getting close to opening India's market space up fully to the crypto space. Coinbase plans India's full comeback, essentially with fiat access set for 2026. Coinbase has reopened signups for users in India and confirmed that it plans to launch a fiat ramp in 2026, which is exactly what we want to hear. John from Coinbase's APEC director shared the update essentially at India's blockchain week. The exchange now allows crypto-to-crypto trading for all users and aims to restore the ability for people in India to deposit rupees and buy essentially crypto directly once its fiat services essentially return. This marks Coinbase's full essentially re-entry into India's markets essentially space since it halted its operations back in September 2023. Coinbase launched actively in India in 2022 and gained traction very quickly. The company enabled local users to buy crypto through the unified payment interfaces and a national essentially payment system that powers most digital transactions in India. Within days, the National Payments Corporation of India, the operator of UPI, stated that they did not recognize Coinbase's use of payment networks. As a result, Coinbase suspended UPI support and limited its services in India back in 2023. By 2023, Coinbase shut down all operations for Indian customers. It asked users to offload their holdings and closed access for accounts that were linked to overseas essentially entities. John later said that Coinbase wanted to complete essentially the reset in India. He described the decision as a difficult since essentially the company had millions of users inside the country, but it chose a full essentially offboarding to avoid regulatory conflicts and lawsuits. We had millions of customers in India. historically, and we took essentially a very clear stance to offboard those customers entirely from overseas entities, where they were essentially not in a regulated essentially environment, because we wanted to essentially to kind of a burn of the boats, have a clean slate essentially when the time comes. And apparently the time is 2026, with Coinbase essentially opening stores back to Indian users. After shutting down, Coinbase began working directly with the Financial Intelligence Unit in India. The FIU oversees transactions, monitoring financial crime compliance, and reporting requirements for high-risk industries. Coinbase registered with the FIU earlier this year. The registration was a step, essentially a key step, because any exchange operating in India must follow the FIE rules on reporting essentially suspicious activity and maintaining compliance systems. Coinbase reopened access to its app in October, though early signups, and now allows new users to join freely. At this stage, Coinbase also allows only crypto to crypto trading. Users cannot deposit essential rupees or withdraw rupees or buy crypto using fiat methods so far. The platform functions on conversion essential tools where customers can trade between digital assets, and the limitations exist because fiat rails have not yet been approved and the UPI issue from 2022 has not been resolved. Despite the limitation features set, Coinbase confirmed that it will bring in essentially a fiat on-ramp and off-ramp back to India. A fiat on-ramp allows users to obviously add money to exchanges, which in other words for us means liquidity. So if you're wondering to yourself, if you live somewhere else or essentially around the world, and you'll think to yourself, Indian crypto news, how's that relevant to me if you're living inside essentially the West? Well, India has a massive market space essentially for the crypto, billions we're talking about inside the crypto space, and opening their doors once back up again is going to add liquidity towards the crypto space, which means it's going to add liquidity towards crypto projects you're holding inside your portfolios. Now, moving on essentially from India also opening its doors in 2026 alongside Argentina and Russia, to Binance is what we're going to talk about next on tonight's live. Binance essentially lists Cardano's Night token. Now, Cardano essentially has released two tokens. One of them is Night, and it's going to be listed on Binance. Essentially is boosting market sentiment because it is Binance Exchange. Binance, the world's largest crypto exchange, has announced support for Midnight Network's new essentially native token, Night. The news immediately energized the Cardano essentially community, pushing essentially ADA's price up by 4% just when the announcement came. The announcement came essentially through an official X post early today, where Binance Alpha essentially confirmed plans to list the privacy essentially focused token. Privacy tokens right now are becoming all the rave. Essentially, everybody wants to be involved in some sort of privacy token projects because they're realizing the more we're going towards a regulated crypto environment, the more we're moving away from decentralization technically to more of a centralized system inside of a digital world, which is something I said a long time ago. I said the idea of a fully decentralized world is never going to work. Elements of centralization will always exist because that's just how the world's always been operated in. And the point of going digital is not about privacy. It's about, they're keeping their eye on you. So privacy tokens are actually becoming the rage again. Everybody wants to be involved in some sort of, it could be Monero, it could be Zcash, or it could be Scalar, essentially XLA, or essentially it could be the Night token from Cardano. As revealed essentially in an X post, Binance Alpha stated that trading for the Night token will open on 9th of essentially December. In other words, tomorrow the trading is going to be available. Eligible users will be able to essentially claim their airdrops also using Binance Alpha points once the market goes live. The exchange also noted that more information about its support for Midnight will be essentially released soon. Midnight welcomed the development, saying that Binance listing will introduce Night to a wider global audience. According to the team, the listing essentially will help attract new users, expand the network's reach, and will also essentially speed up essentially privacy tools across the Web3 ecosystem. Midnight is a zero-knowledge proof network built to improve privacy for decentralized applications and essentially on the Cardano blockchain. Its technology allows developers to build dApps with stronger confidentiality features while staying compatible with Cardano's infrastructure. You want to know something surprising? Cardano is essentially a project regarding Midnight, also has some sort of a connection to the XRP ledger, because Cardano is essentially founder in the past talked about the idea of Midnight being connected to the XRP ledger. This positions Midnight as a rising competitor to well-known privacy chains such as Monero and Zcash. The token has already gained recognition across the industry. Exchanges like Bybit, HTX, and Bitpanda have confirmed they will also list essentially Night, adding that essentially to the growing support for the project. Cardano's founder, Charles essentially Hopkins, reacted positively to the wave of announcements. He shared his new details about Midnight's upcoming launch and urged the community to stay alert for what comes next. So, if you want to look into a new crypto project, well, Midnight is about to be launching tomorrow on Binance and other crypto exchanges as well. The token's ticker is Night. It's from Cardano themselves, essentially Cardano's founder, and also it has some sort of ties to the XRP ledger. If you go back to what Cardano's founder said in the past regarding Midnight, essentially being connected through a bridge to the XRP ledger. Now, moving on essentially from this new token from Cardano themselves to the US. Before we talk about the US and China, let's go inside the comment section first. Let's see what's happening there. Straight into the next news. So we were essentially here, I think. Don't forget your plan for XRP at the other side of the price appreciation. Facts. How do many of you feel about XDC, UMAUs? Regarding XDC, I think XDC is a brilliant project. It has a very, very, very bright future ahead of itself, and everybody holding it should understand it's definitely a long-term project. I think XLM is a sleeper more so than any other crypto except XRP. I agree. XLM, for me, it should have moved a long time ago. And I do believe it is definitely a sleeping giant, just like XRP is. XLM should be moving in the same footsteps. Let's go, Miles, for the information again tonight. Let's go, Scott. Share the live. Let's go, Scott. Miles, do you think that Ripple has some type of security deal with many of the cold wallets available? I don't think so, but we never know due to the NDAs. Miles, how do you feel about airdrops? I have been burned through, as I mentioned on this show, by an airdrop. I ask because I would think there are some good ones out there, but how can we determine them? Good question. Regarding airdrops, yes, always make sure that it's a legitimate airdrop from the crypto project essentially you're holding. There's a lot of fake airdrops out there that essentially will take quite a lot of money away from crypto money, essentially away from you. Two, make sure essentially the crypto project you're trying to receive an airdrop for is not a meme coin. So if, for example, there is a genuine XRP airdrop, let's say, for example, from Ripple themselves, then that's a good airdrop. If it's a genuine Solana airdrop from the Solana Foundation themselves, good airdrop. If it's an Ethereum airdrop from Ethereum Essential Foundation themselves, good airdrop. AVAX Foundation, you get the picture. But if it's a random token, essentially, stay away from that airdrop in most cases because it's going to drain you on a massive fee. Also, honestly, double check it's that the airdrop you're receiving is genuine because there are so many fake airdrops out there. Please be aware. So there are good airdrops, obviously, and there are bad ones, and there are scam ones. You got to make sure which one you're going for. The good ones are from the projects themselves. The bad ones are for the random projects, and the scams are, well, they're just random links. Now, let's go, Miles. Let's go, Scott. Funky Brother says, Miles, what do you think about us opening accounts with the OTC? Buying over the counter? Just in case XRP hits $1,000, as we cannot cash that up in our banks. You can't, but there are private banks. You see, you don't have to be limited inside of a digital world to... Now, as I said, some banks will obviously be existing due to essentially advancing inside the blockchain sector. Banks that don't essentially, take a footstep inside the crypto space, then obviously they're the ones that are going to be, disappearing. So... regarding essentially Funky Brother's question, which is a good question, regarding, Miles, what do you think of us opening accounts with the OTC over the counter, in other words, just in case XRP hits 1,000, as we cannot cash that up in essentially in our bank accounts. XRP hitting any amount, essentially having that difficulty. You don't have to stick to essentially public banks. You can go to private banks and they accept you with open arms. Very, very wide open arms. And how I know this is because there is one particular bank that I was a part of, and it is a private bank and amazing bank. Private banks, the difference you get from private banks to essentially public banks is crazy. They couldn't care less about a lot of stuff that the public banks care about, of where you're spending, where it's coming from, and so on. It is a really different type of banking, essentially. but you don't have to stick to essentially public banks. Private banks are also available as well. And when the time comes, there is a few private banks that I would suggest or good to go to, essentially. Obviously, you would be making the final decision yourself after, having a communication or something with a person from that bank or a concierge from that bank. Will you repeat your response about Ripple and security deal? A commercial came on and blocked out your response. Regarding Ripple and security deals with essentially wallet holders, I said it's most likely no, but you never know due to the NDAs. If you think our CMF is the best crypto group online, drop a one. Let's go, Scott. And that also concerns me on the other side of the price appreciation. Yep, private banks. You don't have to be limited to public banks. There is a lot of private banks out there that are, that offer you a much more better service than a public bank would. Not financial advice at all. Now, the US and China. These two essentially could bring the market space down and bring it back up. And it seems like the US and China might be trying to fix their relationship, which is incredible news for us inside the crypto sector. Because when tech stocks do good because of China and the US's relationship, Bitcoin tends to do good. And when Bitcoin tends to do good, the rest of the crypto space tends to do good. That's only because, again, we don't have a clarity yet, so we can't decouple from Bitcoin's treacherous footsteps. But here's what's happening regarding the essentially situation between US and China in terms of their computer chipsets, because that's where everything started from. When Trump decided to essentially not allow China to buy any sort of chipsets. And then China suggested that, essentially we don't need your chipsets, we'll just make our own ones. And that's just essentially created more of a headache for everyone. But here's what's going on. The US to approve NVIDIA essentially chip exports to China. The US is getting ready to approve chipsets to be sent to China, which is good, essentially very good news for NVIDIA stock and also for tech stocks and also for Bitcoin. So what does this mean essentially for crypto? While essentially this news is yet to essentially, come out on official sources, it is essentially what's going around in terms of rumors, in terms of Wall Street, and so on. So here it is. While retainers has essentially not yet independently essentially confirmed the move, sources indicate that the plan has been under discussions for weeks now, following a broader diplomatic essentially sit-down. The development comes shortly after President Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping reached a temporarily essentially truce in trade and tech wars during the summit in Busan, and tech war essentially in South Korea last month. The decision to allow H200 shipments suggests a friendlier US essentially stance towards China and high-end tech corporations, a rollback essentially of several Biden-era export limits, and a round essentially priority on stabilizing US and China economic relationships. However, Washington's essentially hawks are raising concerns, and many warn that exporting advanced AI chips could boost China's military capabilities also, which was the original reason behind the restrictions of not letting China be able to purchase high-end computer chipsets from the US. The US Commerce Department and NVIDIA have not yet issued any public statements so far. The NVIDIA H200 unveiled 2 years ago is far more powerful than the widely restricted H100. And key advantages: significantly essentially more high essentially bandwidth memory, faster data processing speeds, nearly 6 times the power of the H200s. Now, a new report from the Institutions for Progress highlights that the H200 could allow Chinese AI labs to build supercomputers nearly matching US capabilities, though at a higher cost. This shift could accelerate China's AI research and competition in AI model developments and global supercomputing race. Trump had previously threatened new export controls on tech, but has now rolled them back in multiple cases, particularly as China tightened its own restrictions on rare earth materials. The immediate market reactions regarding this news of the US and China fixing their relationship. Nvidia essentially surged, signaling optimism for restored China revenues. Tech stocks also saw mild upward pressure. AI-related sectors are expected to rally if exports are approved and confirmed. So right now, we're just waiting for the confirmation to be coming out on essentially official news sources that essentially this is happening. So far, it's just retainers essentially coming out and suggesting that, the conversation has been happening behind closed doors. According to their sources, it's that China and the US are about to be having some sort of a sit down, and AI essentially 200 H200 chipsets from Nvidia are about to be sold to China, and China is about to be opening their markets up in terms of rare earth materials to the US, and that relationship is about to be fixed. And if that does happen, tech stocks will go up. Bitcoin should follow tech stocks on the essentially on the high rise. The rest of crypto space will follow Bitcoin's footsteps as well. But that's just temporarily upwards. What isn't temporarily upwards is a Clarity Act. A Clarity Act is a foundation. And when that does happen, we should be seeing movements on the uptrend, essentially not overnight, but we should be seeing the uptrend movement happening. As I said, there's two outcomes we're going to Clarity Act as well. But anyways, putting that to one side, it does seem like the US and China might be fixing their relationships, which is brilliant news for us inside the crypto sector. Now, the UK is what we're going to talk about next. So moving away from the US news and the Argentinian news and the Indian news, we're going to crypto space and the Russian news to the UK. The UK is also getting ready to open its doors towards the crypto space in 2026. Not only that, but the UK is also looking into stable coins being used as legal tender inside the United Kingdom, which is massive news. So the watchdog essentially seeks crypto industry input on US investment reforms. The UK's Financial Conduct Authority, the FCA, which is the equivalent of an SEC inside the United States, has unveiled a series of consultation proposals aimed at bolstering essentially investment opportunities and safeguarding consumers within the rapidly evolving essentially digital asset landscape. These essentially proposals invite inputs from crypto companies to refine rules around access to investments, client categorizations, and conflicts of interest, signaling essentially a cautious yet progressive approach towards integrating cryptocurrencies into mainstream financial essentially regulations. That is brilliant news. You know why? Because that's exactly what the SEC did inside the United States as well. The new SEC, which was essentially having sit-downs with crypto CEOs and executives and CTOs and so on to get their input, their feedback in terms of having a better understanding of the crypto space moving forward, so that the regulations that do come out from the SEC, essentially that they do want to pass, makes sense at least, not what Gary Gensler was doing, making things up in his own imaginary head. So regarding essentially UK doing exactly what the SEC is doing now, having these conversations with the crypto CEOs and heads, brilliant news. The UK's essentially financial regulators actively seeking to foster a safer environment for digital assets. And the recent discussions paper, the FCA essentially points out to a significant portion of underperformance and high engagement trading apps stems from crypto assets and derivatives, illustrating the risk posed by unregulated or poorly essentially regulated platforms. The proposal essentially emphasizes the importance of providing consumer with essentially appropriate warnings and investment limits, especially when dealing with crypto assets and proxies or high-risk products. One of the notable recommendations is that clients with personal investment histories concentrate essentially in high-risk leverage or crypto assets should not automatically be classified as professional investors unless they meet strict essentially criteria. This move aims to prevent unsuitable advice and reduce exposure to volatile digital assets. The FCA suggests that firms should be granted more responsibility in compliance and moving away from rigid, arbitrary tests towards a more nuanced assessment process. Crypto firms involved in advising or selling digital assets are encouraged to respond to these proposed guidelines by early 2026. Regulatory environments. This initiative is a part of the UK's broader strategy to develop a clear and well-regulated market for digital assets, which includes legislations and passed last December designating essentially digital assets as property, and an environment step towards essentially legal clarity for matters such as the theft recovery and insolvency proceedings as well. And the UK's measured yet steady policy evolution reflects a desire to attract innovative crypto businesses while prioritizing investor protection as the market matures, and regulatory clarity will be key to fostering continued growth and confidence inside the sector. So The UK is now showing some sort of positiveness towards the crypto space, because before they were just mentioning things, oh, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and so on. Not much was coming out of it. But now they're actually going to be having conversations with CEOs, essentially, of blockchain companies, and most likely is going to be one of them is going to be Ripple, to be fairly honest, or it could be even also Coinbase, it could be Circle, and so on. This is a huge footstep that the UK has taken right now, having sit downs with crypto CEOs so they can have a better understanding of the crypto space moving forward in terms of their regulations for next year. Massive news. Now, moving on from that to Bloomberg. Before we talk about what Bloomberg essentially suggested today, let's go inside the comment section first. This was happening there, and then we go straight into the next news on tonight's live. Let's see where we're at. We were at here. When will the other coins decouple from BTC? I think it's critical that happens soon. If the moment we get a Clarity Act, two things will happen. One of these outcomes will happen, but they both have the same ending. The first outcome after a Clarity Act essentially is that the market won't react the way it's supposed to. It'll just be essentially buy the rumor, sell the news, and not much will happen. And people will get frustrated and go, I thought the Clarity Act was the last step. Nothing's happening. The market's going down and so on. And then after a few weeks to a month, you'll see the market going on the upside due to a Clarity Act, because it's supposed to go to the upside. Outcome number two, you'll just see gradual movements on the upside happening inside the market space. Obviously, we'll have the downtrends as well, but we have more gradual movements to the upside going forward, not for the entire crypto space, to be fairly honest. Once the news is passed, it could be positive for the entire crypto space. But after a while, the only crypto projects that will be and stay positive going forward is essentially projects that have utility and have some sort of footstep and foothold inside the financial sector, or depending on what sector they're in. Crypto projects that have just been bluffing all the way along and suggesting they can do this and that, and they're better than everybody else, but have nothing to show for it, they're the ones that are going to be falling behind and probably just carry on following Bitcoin's footsteps. But the ones that actually have utility and purpose will decouple and essentially move forward, because they don't have the same partnerships. In some cases they do, but in most cases they don't. Now, I've been reducing essentially my bag to crypto that have real world utility and dollar cost average to minimize their risk. I already have investing in crypto, and any of the ideas that you use for yourself. Best, I mean, you're in the right category: finance, essentially, and utility. Best category, honestly. Real world assets is just a subcategory of finance sector inside the crypto space. Doge and Shiba, any comments on these two cryptos? Yes. Okay. In this world, good question, because as you might be thinking to yourself, Doge and Shiba is a good question. And I'll tell you why. In this world, there's two types of money. Now, to some of you, this might be clear. To some of you, might not be. But there's two types of money that makes the world spin. It's good money, and the easiest way to put it is like this. There's good money and bad money. This is what makes the world spin. Good money and bad money. Now, going into a digital world, it doesn't mean bad money is just going to disappear and it's only good money going forward. That's not going to how it's going to be operating going forward. In a digital world, good money and bad money will also coexist, just like they do in essentially in a traditional fiat world. And there has to be something that fills the gap for the bad money to still exist inside the world. And that will essentially be privacy tokens that will fill that gap for the bad money. It would also essentially be projects like Shiba and essentially projects like Doge in this category, essentially. Shiba is actually used, a lot of people don't know this, but Shiba is actually used by the Iranian government to launder money. A lot of people don't know about this. But Shiba Inu is actually used to launder money for the Iranian government and a few other governments out there. They actually use it. Russia even uses Shiba to sometimes move about money. So going into a digital world, good money, bad money exists now. It's going to exist even later on. And something needs to fill the gap for bad money. And that's essentially what's going to be filling the gap for bad money. So regarding Doge and Shiba, I mean, Doge, Elon Musk, a big supporter of Doge. Shiba has made some footsteps inside the oil sector as well, which is brilliant. I mean, the community behind Shiba Inu is absolutely amazing. Few things that I've always said in the past regarding meme coins, if I think meme coins will essentially survive, I said the ones I see surviving is Doge because of Elon Musk, Shiba essentially because of the community behind the footsteps they're taking, and Luna. Also, these three are the ones that are most likely going to continue being used for money laundering. because they won't be using any other tokens. I mean, USDT gets used quite a lot for money laundering, but a lot of people's wallets have been blacklisted due to that. Now, any comments, essentially, that's why Russia said they're going to stop using USDT, essentially, because too many of their wallets have been blacklisted due to illicit activities of the funds of where they're coming, where they're being spent, and laundering money. That's why Russia moved away from USDT. Any comments on HOT? I have been doing some research. There is little information on this project, but seems to be solid. Do you know much about it? HOT is a good project. It's a long-term project, in my opinion. It could do well, I would say. It could do well. Based on how things essentially may go politically here in the United States, the crypto-friendly politicians better get something done before the midterm elections. Otherwise, it might be get more strained. Yeah, I agree 100%. 100% agree. There are so many videos talking about keeping your cryptos off cold wallets, but instead, essentially on decentralized exchanges. What's your opinion? Good question. Regarding the morons inside the crypto space creating videos and telling people to get their money off cold wallets and put it on exchanges, why? Why would you go backwards is what my essentially main question to those idiots making those videos be. Now, if you also look at the timeline, we're at a stage of regulations and taxation of cryptocurrencies. Anything on the exchanges is taxable, and anything in your wallets, when you declare them, is also taxable as well. So, is an exchange better of safeguarding essentially crypto assets or essentially a cold storage wallet? Let me make it very clear. If an exchange is better, a crypto exchange is better. And no hate to crypto exchanges, because they opened the world up to the crypto space. So no hate towards any crypto exchange. Love Binance, love Coinbase, Crypto.com, the list goes on. But think of it this way: if a crypto exchange is a better place to keep your money rather than a cold storage wallet, then why is companies like Ripple, for example, purchasing out Metaco that partnered with IBM and HSBC Bank and Standard Chartered Bank and Zodiac Custody and Ripple themselves to build a self-cold storage wallet, high grade for institutions? If they could have just used essentially Coinbase custody services, or essentially Binance's custody services, or essentially Crypto.com services, and so on. Instead, they spent millions you could even say billions somewhere down the line, to create a cold storage wallet. Why would just a major company like Ripple purchase out Metaco, partner with IBM, partner essentially with Standard Chartered Bank, and partner with essentially Zodiac Custody and so on, to build a high-grade self-storage wallet, cold storage wallet for institutions? Why go through all that trouble if they could just hold it on Coinbase exchange? It's safer. Because it isn't. Not because Coinbase is unsafe, because keeping your money on cold storage wallets is always going to be safer than exchanges. There's a reason why they're spending millions to billions developing essentially high cold storage wallets for institutions, or essentially for institutional essentially investments, or high profile investments, or high priority investments, people, and so on, because that's just better. It's safer. And if anybody's telling you otherwise, they're an idiot. Because there are companies out there spending millions to billions trying to provide you the best cold storage wallet to safeguard your assets. Why would they do that if the best option is keep it on the exchange? Because it isn't. Honestly, if any idiot out there is telling, any moron that is genuinely telling you to keep your money on the exchanges, is an absolute moron. There's no way around it. As what I would say to that, essentially not, definitely not. Cold storage wallet is always the best option. This move essentially from the UK is massive and unexpected. I agree 100% regarding the UK essentially having sit downs with crypto CEOs. Absolutely. Let's see where we're at. This move essentially share the live. Let's go scroll. Let's get Miles. Let's go scroll. Share the live. Let's go. But yeah, cold storage wallet by a mile. It's better than exchanges. Now, Bloomberg has came out and said something quite interesting. Also something that I said 2 years ago, or a year ago as well, which is we should never be seeing essentially Bitcoin. We should never see Bitcoin anywhere around 20,000 or 10,000 or 5,000 ever again, due to the institutional players inside the crypto space. So Eric, which everybody knows from Bloomberg, he's an ETF specialist analyst from Bloomberg, has defended the suit coiners against criticism from essentially superficial event appearances, arguing that they are responsible for the most recent Bitcoin bull market. In other words, if there are people out there who are criticizing the institutions and in the crypto space in any sort of a way, the institutions are the reasons you're never going to be seeing Bitcoin at 5,000, 10,000, 20,000 ever again, unless they essentially come together collectively and decide to dump entire market space, which is not. I mean, everything is possible, anything is possible, but very rare. He claims that essentially these suits are the reason why Bitcoin is no longer trading at just $20,000. In crypto disclosure, essentially he's calling them suit coiners, refers to institutional investors and TradFi firms and banks, asset managers, and also compliance-heavy, essentially, entities that entered Bitcoin, essentially, after the ETF era. They are especially responsible for bridging crypto with the broader economy. Data from Bitcoin's ETF info since their essentially 2024 launch shows that over tens of billions of dollars in assets under management. In fact, BlackRock's IBIT alone boosts nearly $70 billion in inflows. It is also believed that essentially that the kind of mass emotional selling pressure that historically drove Bitcoin down 60 to 80% bear markets, same commentators have taken issues of Bitcoin essentially investments weak speaker essentially lineup, which essentially features TradFi figures like essentially John Van Eck and essentially BlackRock executives. Their presence clashes with the disruptive liberation efforts of early Bitcoin communities that wanted to resist traditional finance, but now it's the other way around. Everybody wants the financial sector inside the crypto space because they have very, very big wallets and they're not as scared as the market space as the majority of the retail section is, because they're very, very more well experienced in terms of controlling their emotions when the market goes on the downside or on the upside, essentially, because the years of experience they have in Wall Street, essentially. But Eric's suggesting that you would never be seeing essentially, Bitcoin at those type of prices. I agree with. I'll be very honest. The institutions are the reasons why we won't see massively discount prices on Bitcoin ever again, unless there's a huge scandal about Bitcoin. As I said, anything's possible. But this is why we need institutions, because they maintain a project's price. Now, Morgan Stanley is what we're going to talk about next on tonight's live. Morgan Stanley, essentially, Michael Wilson predicts US bull market by 2026. Morgan Stanley's Michael Wilson predicts a US stock bull market by essentially 2026, citing improved corporate earnings and interest rate cuts, according to essentially what he suggested today. In consumer goods and small caps affecting broader investment strategies and risk assets, essentially risk asset behaviors, Michael Wilson's predictions revolves around a broader market dynamic beyond mega cap essentially tech stocks, with significant essentially upgrades to consumer essentially and small cap stocks, and current economic indicators suggest earnings and expectations and potential interest rate cuts also point towards a stabilizing environment. Wilson also posts that the US Federal Reserve policy decisions will significantly influence the trajectory moving forward. Expected changes include lower interest rates and simultaneous broader economic growths. And Wilson also highlights key sectors such as financial and industrial and essentially as beneficials of this transition. This prediction, essentially paired with stable labor markets, could generate new investment opportunities and broader essential earnings and growth by 2026. The financial essential community is closely monitoring reactions to Wilson's analysis, and Wilson's insights and emphasizes a favorable backdrop for equity investments with notable anticipation surrounding the Federal Reserve policy shifts, and the broader investment community is essentially receptive as a dovish policy could bolster the projected essentially bull market moving forward. So Morgan Stanley suggests, in other words, that we are going to be going towards some sort of a bull cycle, end of the year, going into 2026. For the stock market, which will also prop up the crypto market because tech stocks will be going up. And it could also be based on, as you want, the rate cuts he's suggesting, or two, the US and China relationship as well. That's a big factor. And the Clarity Act is between 17th to 18th, apparently, as I said now. Now, putting that to one side, which is extremely positive, now we're going to talk about the OCC, which is essentially where, Ripple, Paxos, Circle, and a few other ones have applied for some sort of banking charter license, and also Ripple applying for a Fed account to get the XRP ledger in. So, We also know that the banking associations were weaponized by someone or a group of banks to go after these blockchain companies trying to enter the banking sector. And they sent letters to the OCC telling them to slow down their operations on approving these blockchain companies, in other words, Ripple. But it seems like the OCC couldn't care less about the banking associations or the banks. So here's what's happening. OCC embraces crypto despite bankers' concerns. Global financial institutions are increasingly captivated by the boom in cryptocurrencies and digital assets, prompting varied responses from regulatory bodies. In essentially a critical announcement, the OCC has expressed a progressive stance on digital currencies as Washington event of the OCC, Jonathan Gludd, emphasized the need to move beyond traditional banking mindsets. That is brilliant to hear from the OCC. The OCC is telling everybody, in other words, that let's just move away from traditional banking mindsets and let's just expand our mindsets and go towards this next chapter, which is blockchain. He's essentially promoting a potential shift in regulatory practices. His comments underscores a new chapter in financial oversight, drawing attention to digital currencies, potential in today's economics. Cryptocurrencies now play a significant role in the financial ecosystem, offering an alternative to conventional, essentially to traditional banking practices. Jonathan also highlighted the OCC's method of tackling challenges tied to digital currencies, urging a focus on innovation instead of obstruction. Our priority is to integrate solutions that foster both stability and growth, Jonathan said. His statements also aim to ensure that the banking sector remains essentially contemporary by embracing emerging technologies that present multiple advantages. Bankers have expressed worries about the risks and unpredictabilities in terms of the digital currencies. The OCC, however, continues to seek out potential benefits, and Jonathan also recognized that these efficiencies, but maintained that fear should not be impeded. We are committed to ensuring robust frameworks that cater to security and advancements, he affirmed. The OCC seeks a well-renowned approach that includes protection for both consumers and the financial essentially industry. Facing challenges, the OCC aims to balance its regulatory duties with innovation by embracing cryptocurrency advancements. They promote a responsive financial essentially climate. This ongoing dialogue about digital currencies positions the OCC as a pivotal player in guiding future economic directions. The shift also shows a willingness to adapt and engage in digital innovations, essentially moving forward. Regulatory essentially bodies worldwide are dealing with related challenges, with some opting for tighter regulations, while the entities like the OCC explore more adaptable essentially strategies for the crypto space. This highlights the ongoing debate about the crypto place in the financial system, and the OCC's essentially adaptive approach could significantly influence global counterparts and views and strategies concerning digital currencies, such as lessons could inspire other entities aiming to regulate responsibly, essentially, yet progressively. As the digital asset landscape continues to mature, dialogue between regulators and industry stakeholders remains vital. Successful, essentially, integration of digital finance into traditional frameworks requires collective, essentially, efforts. Understanding of risk and rewards will empower market players to secure their positions of enduring success, and properly aligned frameworks are essential to fulfilling both regulatory and market demands. The OCC stance indicates a broader, essentially, trend towards accepting cryptocurrencies, and their readiness to engage essentially signifies necessary regulatory evolutions in the light of technological progress. Navigating essentially the expanding digital finance era remains crucial, ensuring flexibility while safeguarding economic stability and security. So, one, the OCC couldn't care less essentially about the banking associations or the bankers that are afraid about a digital space. Two, the OCC is now suggesting that we need to, take more footsteps inside of this digital world, not be afraid of it. And three, they're also suggesting essentially that the OCC being more friendly towards the applicants, essentially Ripple, Circle, Paxos, and so on, regarding them entering the banking field, should make other countries follow their footsteps, which is exactly what's going to be happening. Like, as always, like a domino effect. The US introduced the Genius Act, Hong Kong introduced a Genius Act, Japan has introduced a Genius Act. I mean, the Middle East in general has introduced a Genius Act. Singapore introduced a Genius Act, and the list just goes on. South American countries introduced a Genius Act. And that's just how it works. The US does something, everybody else follows, like a domino effect. So the US essentially offering Ripple, Paxos, and Circle some sort of essentially a green light to enter the banking field will make it very easy for these particular three essentially to get the green light from anywhere else around the world as well. But also Ripple took another step forward, which was the Fed account, which the other two didn't. Now, on the topic of XRP and Ripple, crypto ETPs have essentially surged quite a lot. $760 million as Bitcoin and XRP see strong demand. Bitcoin and XRP are seeing the strongest demand right now through ETPs. So digital asset innovation products recorded as a surge essentially of $760 million in weekly inflows. Total assets under management increased to essentially $180 billion US. As a result of this surge, according to CoinShares analyst James, although essentially still behind the record high of $264 billion, with $483 million, the United States topped the list, followed by Germany with $96.9 million and Canada with $80.7 million. The biggest share went to Bitcoin, essentially at $352 million, but there was also a lot of demand for XRP at $245 million. Chainlink only brought in $52 million. The data indicates a change in market attitude. In addition to showing essentially increasing confidence, the biggest outflow of the essentially $18.7 million from short Bitcoin products since March 2025 suggests essentially that may have peaked. Additionally, CoinShares had also slight withdrawals on Thursday and Friday, probably in response to US macroeconomic data indicating ongoing essentially inflationary pressures. As a result, while keeping an eye on economic indicators, and investors seem to cautiously enter the market, Bitcoin continues to dominate the inflows, bringing year-to-date gains of $27.1 billion, still below the 2024's of $41.6 billion. Meanwhile, XRP popularity skyrocketed, with the year's inflows end at $3.1 billion, vastly exceeding the 2024 essentially $608 million. Chainlink also had record highs of $52 million. It's odd, isn't it, that essentially for the longest time Chainlink did try to compare itself. People said, more people are using Chainlink inside the financial sector or in general inside the institutional sector. But the numbers do suggest otherwise, that in terms of, and there should be no essentially debate or any sort of wars between the crypto projects, but just on the factual basic side, where it was suggested by a lot of people that Chainlink is more widely used inside the institutional sector, and in terms of essentially high profile clients who are most likely going to be, going towards Chainlink compared to essentially XRP and so on. And then when it's in terms of ETPs or ETFs, I mean, XRP in terms of ETPs, because Chainlink doesn't have ETF, in terms of essentially ETPs, XRP is bringing in high record numbers, while Chainlink is only bringing in 52 million. I mean, just again, XRP's popularity skyrocketed with years to end. Inflows of $3.1 billion is what XRP brought in terms of ETPs, and vastly exceeding the 2024 $608 million. XRP only brought in terms of ETPs around $608 million in 2024 in terms of ETPs. 2025 is bought so far essentially around $3.1 billion. Chainlink also essentially had record inflows of $52.8 million, representing the 54% of its essentially assets under management. This demonstrates the growing investor appetite for altcoins with utility and potential network adoptions. With news and factual information like this, it paints you a better picture of, where is the institutional money going to be flowing in. These are indications of where the institutional money is actually going to be flowing in. We've observed stablecoin demonstrating essentially. Additionally, CoinShares predicts that US government debt-backed products will lead the next expansion phase in 2026. Investors prefer treasuries over stablecoins when essentially yield is available with minimal risk. We'll essentially observe stablecoins demonstrating significant global demand for tokenized dollars as both a reserve and transactional asset. essentially the firm noted. However, they added that investors generally choose treasuries over holding dollars directly, emphasizing risk-adjusted preference. CoinShares also highlighted that real-world asset tokenizations involving beyond niche adoption. Established essentially financial firms issuing these assets attract substantial capital while drawing regulatory attention. Settlement issuance and distributions are increasingly happening directly on-chain rather than essentially through legacy custodial systems. Nevertheless, multiple networks also essentially have settlement systems compete for markets essentially share, leaving uncertainty over which platforms will dominate liquidity. Following the huge success of XRP, essentially ETFs and ETPs, Brad, essentially Ripple's CEO, also made a speech about it. So, following the success of the XRP ETFs in the first week after their launch, the US Ripple CEO Brad Garlinghouse also retweeted an idea that essentially insiders already knew. Brad recently appeared essentially on Binance Blockchain, which we talked about, countering claims that interest essentially in XRP ETFs has essentially went skyrocketing. He confirmed that 2026 will be a bullish year for cryptocurrencies, especially for XRP. He also essentially, numbers of XRP ETFs have seen approximately $900 million in inflows. This is ETFs now, signaling a significant increase in activity for the token. According to Brad, one factor contributing to this rise is the regulatory clarity Ripple has recently achieved inside the United States. He explained that the last few years haven't been particularly favorable for XRP, as many potential institutional investors have essentially shied away from it due to regulatory issues and risk concerns. However, this has since faded as these essentially enthusiasts have entered the markets and purchased XRP ETFs to alleviate the stress of their own custody. Expressing optimism about the massive growth expected from XRP and other crypto ETFs in 2026, Brad said only 1 to 2% of the total ETF market is in crypto. I'd bet anyone here that a year from now, it will be more than 1 to 2% and inflows will continue. Moreover, the wave of institutional XRP adoption has also attracted Vanguard, which has made a sharp shift in stance after years of dismissing the crypto space. It's also been suggested that the reason why essentially Vanguard decided to enter the crypto space after hating on the entire crypto space for the longest times is because of XRP ETFs. The asset manager essentially now also lists XRP spot ETFs for trading on its platform. Vanguard essentially offers Bitcoin, Ethereum, and XRP. Keep in mind, Vanguard hated the crypto space, but now it's also been again suggested that due to the success of XRP ETFs, Vanguard also added XRP to their list for their client base. And Brad also suggesting that the people that used to run away from the XRP space due to the essentially lawsuits that were happening with the SEC in terms of the institutional sector are the same ones running back into the XRP ledger in terms of the high-profile clients. So, 2026, going to 2026, it's genuinely all about 1, institutions, 2, regulations, 3, essentially governments opening their doors towards the crypto space. 4, according to Brad, essentially 2026 is not only essentially going to be special for the crypto space, but it's going to be extra special for XRP. 5, essentially showing that the inflows that are coming in terms of essentially the data that's been provided, in terms of Bitcoin's data, in terms of inflows and outflows, and Ethereum's inflows and outflows, and XRP's inflows and outflows, and also essentially XRP's inflows and outflows, Chainlink's inflows and outflows, and the list goes on. Bitcoin and XRP are smashing it right now in terms of ETPs compared to the rest of the crypto space, that ones that do have ETPs and essentially ETFs. The rest not doing so good, essentially. But in general, it's all looking good so far. Honestly, there's so much bullish news in terms of the UK having sit-downs with the crypto CEOs, in terms of India opening their doors back up towards the crypto space, in terms of Chinese businesses want to enter the crypto space. Essentially, El Salvador is going to be opening their doors towards the crypto space in 2026. Russia is going to be opening their doors towards the crypto space 2026. China's looking into it because their businesses are pushing them into it and so on. America and China's relationship going to be fixed and resolved. Brilliant news. 17th to 18th of December of this month going to be essentially the sit down for the Clarity Act. It is all coming together towards the end of the year, to be fairly honest. And on that note, essentially on that note, we have reached the endings of tonight's live. This was episode 416 of the CMF live show. The CMF stands for CryptoMouse Family. My name is Miles. You can tune to this live Monday, Friday, 10 p.m. long time onwards for the most recent news regarding cryptocurrencies, CBDCs, AI, politics, and regulations. Most importantly, the OCC also being friendly towards the crypto space. The OCC essentially saying that they don't care what the bankers have to say or what the traditional system has to say, but they care more about the crypto space, it means the world to us, because Ripple applied for a bank charter license and a Fed account. Now, before we do go, obviously, let's go to the comment section. I want to answer everyone's questions just before we do go. Let's see where we're at. Manny, good to see you. How you doing? Evening, brother. Miles, why did Ripple allow the messaging system on Ripple Net for banks if it wants to replace SWIFT? The reason why they did it is because banks weren't essentially very keen on using crypto day one. So Ripple instead created the ultimate best essentially payment system out there, messaging standard out there, that banks would use, and then eventually bring those banks in slowly more towards a much more suitable asset, which is the XRP ledger, which gives them access to tokenizations and everything else that they want essentially. But the first steps they took had to be essentially something that the banks would be comfortable entering into, which was a standard but better version of a payment system. That should be a good read. Where did you read that? News. I can share inside Telegram, no problem. Share the live, hit the like buttons, and share the comments outside the live. Let's go, family. Let's go, Scott. By the way, thank you so much to honestly everybody who has liked and essentially retweeted this live show. Thank you so much. If you haven't seen it, remember, smash the retweet buttons and smash the essentially like buttons as well. Things are going to be looking up by the looks of it. Miles, most of the institutions essentially waiting for the Clarity Act to be approved before they enter the crypto space. I agree. Like the Japanese essentially behemoths, I agree. I agree. My first, because there's no more gray areas then. Gray areas lead to essentially lawsuits. I agree. My frustration is that Congress is holding it up. I shared an article earlier with Miles, with a senator who had a hand in holding it up. Essentially, it had passed the House. Do you think that the interest rates will be lower this month in the US? They should be going to 2026. It plays out better for Jerome Powell if he does it. But let's see if he's going to be, acting like Gary Gensler, which is like a child, or is he going to be an adult and lower the rates? In what ways, essentially, can the price of ACH benefit from the Clarity Act or from both potential, essentially, Singaporean versions of the Clarity Act? Well, no more gray areas, and essentially countries opening their doors back up towards the crypto space. They need on-ramps and off-ramps, and ACH does offer a very good payment system for on-ramps and off-ramps. So we'll have to see how that one plays out. I'm thinking it will be, on one hand, because of the economic essentially situations. On the other hand, if the politics creep in, it could be a disaster. I agree. Is it true that the shortage supply shocks are happening on the exchanges for XRP? Yes, it is. There is a shortage supply situation slowly happening in terms of exchanges, in terms of XRP. Yes. Elect me president, we will be moving forward on XRP, XLF, XDCH, but I won't create a Scott coin. Let's go, Scott. That is Miles' question. I have researched and read both sides of the argument, but XRP seems to be something special and different. I agree. Good night, Miles, and thank you for the great news. Great live. Let's go JP. See you tomorrow, but sometimes as usual. Good night, Miles, and see you tomorrow evening. See you tomorrow evening, Kelly. Sometimes as usual. Miles, congratulations on that episode 416. Let's go, Scott. Thank you so much. Good night, Miles and CMF. Excellent news. See you tomorrow. Free and forever. See you tomorrow. Sometimes as usual. Good night. Let's go, Scott. See you tomorrow. Sometimes as usual. Love it when we end on a good note. Great show. Take care, Miles and CMF. Let's go, Ray. See you tomorrow. See you tomorrow, brother. Same timing as usual. Night, Miles and CMF. Brilliant show. See you tomorrow. Let's go, Joe. See you tomorrow. Same as usual. Good night, Miles, and good night, CMF. See you tomorrow night as well. Funky brother. See you tomorrow sometime as usual. Miles, thanks for all you do for our group. It's special and appreciated. Scott, thanks so much for the kind words. Miles, can you name some private banks just from the top of your head? Yes, I can. Solo Bank. Go and check it out. Let's go, Miles. Thanks for another great program. Let's go, Scott, and see you tomorrow sometime as usual. I will see everybody tomorrow, same timing as usual. Good night, Miles. See you again tomorrow, mate. Thank you very much. Let's go, Addy. By the way, do you know I slept at 6 a.m. I slept around 6 a.m. as well. Thanks, Miles. See you all tomorrow, CMF. Shelly, let's go. See you tomorrow sometime as usual as well. Great as usual. Good night, all. Lina, let's go. See you tomorrow sometime as usual. Addy, see you tomorrow sometime as usual. Scott, see you tomorrow. And Shelly, see you tomorrow sometime as usual as well. I will see everybody tomorrow, same time as usual. Everybody have a great day or a good night, depending on where you're around the world, CMF members. See you all tomorrow for episode 470 of the CMF Live Show. Please like, comment, and essentially, if you subscribed and followed during this live show, thank you so much. And I'm running on very low fuel as well. 6 a.m. I slept, but I still did the live show. I'll see everybody tomorrow, same time as usual. Everybody have a great day or a good night, depending on where you're around the world. Like, comment, share, follow, subscribe. If you already haven't, if you have, thank you so much. The disclaimer of this live show, as always, not financial advice, not political advice, and whatever I say is only for entertainment purposes. See everybody tomorrow, same time as usual. Good night, Miles. Let's go, commenters. See you tomorrow, same time as usual. Share the live. Let's go. Good night, Scott.